are you doing? This is Alex, and on this week's episode, it's actually going to be kind of a serious subject, which is valets that we've had in the field that have been associated with drugs, and basically we're going to call this episode Drug Dealing Valets. Now, in the world of valet parking, I have to be very serious. We are hiring, let's say, essentially 20 to 21-year-old valets that are driving $100,000 cars. Now, what comes along with that is an extreme responsibility that you need to have. Because let's say one valet is working a parking lot by himself. At any point, he could well have over $1 million worth of cars, easily. If you have 10 $100,000 cars, you have $1 million. So you didn't even think about it. At certain points, we could have up to, and we've had events where we've had $15 million worth of inventory under our care. So we have to be extremely careful. And of course, that's why our insurance is so high. Now, with that, I try to hire the best valets that we can hire. If they're not the best valets, then we train them to be the best valets. And we do that through training processes, manuals, and all different types of things. But backing up a little bit further, we also do something called a motor vehicle report, an MVR report, which basically essentially looks at your motor vehicle report for the past 3 to 5 years to see if there's any speeding. And speeding's okay. Trust me, I'm a big person that speeds all the time. Then we also look at if you've been in major accidents. That's really what we look for when we look for the MVR report. Then beyond that, we just look for if you show up to court, because a lot of times people will have something called FTA, which is a failing to appear. That lets me know that they've been in a situation and they're irresponsible. They didn't even show up to court date. And that's a big indicator when it comes to valet parking, because they may scratch something, hit something, or cause some major kind of damage and then move on. Now, beyond that, we also do something called a criminal background check. We go into the police and we check their record to see if they've had assault charges or anything major like that. Now, one of the newest ones we're looking for is drug dealing. And I know it may seem simple, whether it's pills, cocaine, or marijuana, and no, cocaine is not that minor or serious or anything like that, but these are the things that we truly look for. Anyway, we do monthly Monday meetings. So we have a Monday meeting in the office. Everybody comes in, but the managers come in, and we just kind of discuss what happened over the weekend, what do we need to work on for the week, or anything we need to be alert for. I get notice that one of the valets had approached one of the managers and said, "Hey, I think XYZ valet is drug dealing." How do you say that? He says he's seen a few hand-to-hand transactions that looked a little suspicious. I'm like, okay, that's really weird, but obviously I'm on high alert with that. I don't ever want to be accused of valets that are drug dealing out in the field. And this was not a restaurant. This was one of our parking lots for one of our nightclubs. So there's no one really to complain to except to the police. So I get a call that this valet is going to be working this week. So I said, okay, let's go down there and look at this valet. So we go down there and we're actually spying on him. We actually park in another lot. We come in the back way. And we're sitting kind of up on a balcony looking down, looking at any transactions or anything that might be deemed suspicious to us. So I'm looking at this valet, and what's hard is we're on the wrong side of the car, because the car pulls in the lot over here and we're over here. So we can only see the passenger side. We can't see the driver's side, but we see the valet come, talk to the customer, and then all of a sudden he turns around, the car turns around and leaves out. That can seem kind of suspicious, but we don't know for sure. We didn't see anything. So we're just watching for hours. And what happened, this one car came in, made a U-turn. And so we were able to see the transaction from our side. So as we're looking there, we see some type of handoff transaction, and the valet puts his hand in his pocket. At this point, we call the police. And this is not an emergency situation, so the police are not going to rush out there to be there, to do whatever. What I want them to do is search this valet and see if anything happens, and at this point, move forward with getting this valet arrested. So almost 2 hours later, the police show up. And this is one of our parking lots that start at 10 o'clock at night and go until about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And they searched the valet, and the valet had money on him, and he had a bag full of, I think it was 3 blue pills or blue and white pills or something like that. I don't even know what it was, but that gave them the right to then search his vehicle, where they did find he was dealing drugs to people out in the parking lot. So much so that customers knew that were not even going into the club, knew to come to this valet to get drugs and to buy drugs from this valet. So this valet did get arrested. We did prosecute him. And I have to remind you, this happened years ago. So I think honestly it was like 2006, 2007. But this was crazy because this, maybe about 2006. And this was really crazy because this is a big step. I'm like, this is new liability that we never had to consider before. But for the valet, he doesn't think anything of it. I don't even know what kind of drugs they were particularly, but this valet was dealing drugs out of our parking lot. And that's huge, huge liability for our company. Now, you would think that's an isolated incident, but it's not. It happened again, probably 2 or 3 more years later. This time it was at a restaurant. We got a phone call. This valet, I think he didn't show up or he couldn't show up to his particular shift. So one of our managers went down there to cover the shift until our backup valet can arrive. So while the valet's down there, the manager's down there. The valet, let's back up. The manager is also usually a valet. He usually works 2 or 3 days out in the field anyway. So for the right mind, he is a valet. So a server came out of the restaurant asking for this valet. And he's like, well, he's not here right now. He's like, and the server was upset. He was like, man. And I think he was so comfortable with the manager thinking he was a valet, said, I was going to buy some weed from him. And he's like, what? He's like, yeah, I was going to buy some weed from him. And again, this is years ago. This is probably 2008, 2009, when it was still illegal to sell drugs. I think it still is. I don't do any of it, so I don't really know. So we find out from the server that they all, not all, but quite a few of them purchase weed from this particular valet. So the manager gets back into my office the next day and he's like, Alex, we need to talk. Sit down. I got word that XYZ valet is selling weed to the servers inside of the restaurant. I flip out. The valet's on shift again that night, and I call him in. It's like 10 o'clock, 10:30 in the morning. I'm like, get here today. In fact, we took him off the shift and already started to replace him. And I told him that. I said, we're replacing your shift. We need to talk to you right now. So get into this office as quickly as possible. The valet came in, and he explained that, yes, he did. And he didn't think anything wrong of it. He said it was from his personal stash, and the valets wanted some. The servers wanted some, and it was no big thing. And I'm like, we could get fired from this account immediately, account that we've had at this point up to 10 years, and we can get fired like that, and it fires off probably 12 or 15 different valets. So you're selfish to the point where you don't care. You're only thinking you're helping the servers inside the restaurant, but that literally can get us fired from this account. Now, I can say with 100% certainty the restaurant never found out, because if they did, they would have fired us immediately at that point. Now, we've been there another 12 years. If I tell him the story, he'll probably laugh, meaning the owner of the restaurant, but that was not a funny matter. We fired that valet immediately. These are things we cannot mess with, because this is stuff that's huge. That shows that I authorize that stuff, and I truly don't. I really do try to hire the best valets that we can hire. And I think that was a low point in our company where we had a lot of valets that were not doing a good job. We were just hiring anybody, and we weren't doing extensive background checks as we do today. Now we do checks. We do actually testing. So we do kind of psychological I call it the common sense test. And it's simple things. It's nothing trickery or anything like that. But we give them our procedures and manuals. We let them read it, and then we test them afterwards to see honestly if they've read it or not. And 9 times out of 10, the valets do just great. Some valets will get twisted up, and I'll come back in and we'll discuss why you did certain ways on the test. But these are the things we do to better our valets, so we don't have issues like this where we're getting accused of drug dealing valets or something like that. But this is not funny in the slightest bit. This is a very serious case, and I do not play around with that at all. This could jeopardize our company. This could jeopardize our reputation, accounts, and everything. And of course, from the restaurant's perspective, who wants to know if we go to XYZ, let's just say Cheesecake Factory. It wasn't Cheesecake Factory, but let's say Cheesecake Factory, the valets deal drugs out in the parking lot. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to deal with that. So of course, my job as the lead of the company is to eliminate any type of threat or any kind of situation that might occur on that nature. Now, knock on wood, outside of the valet that was smoking the weed on shift or not, we don't know. We don't play that game at all. And now you know why I fired that previous valet so quickly when I saw the weed that was written out on the desk. Anyway, sorry to have such a serious perspective, but this is some of the stuff that we have to deal with in the world of valet parking. It's not just all beautiful driving Mercedes and Bugattis and all these different things, but it's also the other serious side of we hire people which can jeopardize your company or jeopardize liability that's out there. So if you like these stories, please definitely like, subscribe, and click that notification bell. I'll see you guys next time.